Welcome to Forever Exiled. I'm Justin, aka Tags.
I'm Tyler, Wrecker of Days.
Episode 271 of Forever Exiled is here, and it's gonna be fun. We got stuff to talk about, PoE 2 and maybe PoE. You know, big
Path of Exile 1.
Well,
Only is that what you said? Because when you say
I just
Path
said
of Exile,
do I have to specify now too? Okay.
I see. Well, that's the worst. They weren't supposed to come out with a sequel. It was always just supposed to be the same game, and now they've screwed us forever.
Honestly, what are we supposed to do? Big shout out to our patrons. Thank you to Victor, Chris, JN137, and Solva for joining up this week. Checks in the mail to all of our patrons who resubbed up. We love your faces. Patreon gets you access to After Dark. It's our podcast after the podcast where we just keep on going, and it's I really appreciate it. Thank you so much for supporting the podcast. We love your faces. Yeah, this After Dark is going to be fun. It's 271. We were meant to have BK on, but it didn't work for BK today. This morning, we just couldn't make the timing work. But After Dark, it's going to be a party in After Dark. So
big time.
Excited. Also, huge shout out to everybody who joined up in the Discord this week. And if you're not in that Discord, get in there. It is the you know what? It's the best community in Path of Exile. I'm gonna say it. And it's because it's the nicest. I love those guys and girls. So thanks everybody in our Discord for making it so fun. And we keep it relatively simple. This week we had added a channel. I was so confused. I was like, I don't know. Do we? But we did. We now have a Path of Exile 1 and a Path of Exile 2 because there's two games. So for me, I just look at general. That's the easiest for me.
Well, yeah. So I guess for now, we'll probably change it later and it'll probably just be general. I'm sure eventually, maybe while PoE 2 is purchased, we'll have two separate Path 1, Path 2 channels.
I feel like forever we might. I mean, if they're going to keep going with both, we're going to have to.
Maybe.
Because not everybody's going to play both. Like us, for example.
No, we're not playing both. We're only playing one. So anyway, just so people know, for those that are on our Discord, Justin and I are going to be ignoring the Path of Exile 1 chat because we're not doing that anymore.
I'm not going to ignore. I'll still be reading it.
I am ignoring the Path of Exile 1 specific chat, not general, but chat. And then there is a chat called Path of Exile 2 Early Access. Maybe we should change it to
no, it's staying that till it's
spoilers or whatever. But I'm ignoring that one because I don't want to know stuff that's coming just from general chat. You know what I mean? So I'm ignoring the early access one because I'm still in Act 2 and I don't want to know what's coming.
Mm-hmm.
So
that one's unmuted for me now.
Oh, look at you.
Yeah. I did not go through it though, but I am caught up to the last 5 messages. So yeah.
The last 5. Look at you. Hey?
How's your week, Ty?
I had a good week, but you need to wait one moment, please.
Do I?
Yeah. Bang.
Now on
there
to
was
your
a note
week.
in our template that I swear I updated and it wasn't updated.
Oh,
and
can't have that.
You did it, and that's great, but I want to make sure it's actually in there.
Did I do it?
Now it's in for next week and then our template going forward. So you're welcome. Your question was how
any
amazing
special
am I?
dates to acknowledge, Ty?
Oh, I'm going to murder
it's not
you.
on there. How was
My
your week?
name's Ron Burgundy.
Yeah.
Go screw yourself, San Diego. I'm doing well.
Yeah.
Yep. Things are good in the Tyler house. We Oliver, for those that were asking, thank you everyone for your well wishes this week. My son had a pretty rough bout. He wasn't hospitalized, which is nice. That's my daughter's thing. But he had a pretty rough go with pneumonia. Pneumonia's been going around our area, and that's fine. I think they call this one walking pneumonia. You know, different kinds of pneumonia, right? For people that care.
What's the walking type?
The kind that walks. And I don't know. I don't ask. Right. Like one of our friends is like, let's say one of our friends has a baby. And I come home and say, oh, this person had a baby. And they're like, how were they late? Were they early? How much did they weigh? And I'm like, dear, they just had a baby.
Just yes. Yes to all of it.
So same thing with pneumonia.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, he had a really rough bout with it. And he's like a superhero when it comes to medical stuff.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we'll all be sick with the worst virus on the planet and we'll be out for like a week and a half each whenever we get it. He'll get it for half a day. You know what I mean? He's just that kind of health champ. So when he's really sick, it's a concern, right? And then the last week when we were doing newspapers, all of a sudden he was like in extreme pain in his stomach. He's sobbing. Like, he can be kind of a mommy's boy in a bit. Like, when it's just me and he hurts himself, he's like, oh, God. And then, he'll keep walking or playing or whatever. But when mom's around, right, my wife, he's like,
for sure.
Oh, it totally
so
different.
Like side eyes for a second. He's like, all right, go.
He just knows there's this thing. There's this checkbox in his brain that's subconscious
I'm
where
gonna get cuddles.
Mom's in the premises or she's not. And as soon as he gets hurt, he's like sprinting at her. He's sobbing in her. Oh man. So anyway, she wasn't around while we were doing newspapers, and he's like, but when he's like,
in
a lot of pain, and Erin, my wife, isn't around, something's up. And so he's like telling me, Dad, I'm like so thirsty, like all of a sudden. And all of a sudden I'm thinking, oh no, like he just listed like 4 or 5 things within that short time frame where it was like, oh no, what is it?
Well, you were concerned about appendicitis, but
yes, that's the word I'm looking for. Thank you. And so I'm like, oh no, please no. Erin's like, my wife's like an hour away from getting home from work. And I'm like, but it ended up not being, which was nice, but it was pretty worrisome. And yeah, no, things are good. Christmas shopping's done, or it has been done. We're just my wife has a family tradition of stockings, and their parents would like fill stockings with some fun little neat things, some pointless things, but they end up not being pointless because it'd be like deodorant or chapstick or something like that, right? Just fill in your stockings with a whole bunch of stuff. And it's fun to open 100 little gifts like that, right? That cost you $10 at the dollar store in total. Well, not anymore. I think dollar store's like $5 a thing, but either way. So we've got to finish that up. But besides that, it's been good. We're ready for Christmas. We're ready to host. We're having our in-laws over for the holidays, and we're hosting Christmas dinner this time.
Nice.
Which is nice. And we're just going to have like my family and my wife's family. So it's just going to be the 8 of us.
Nice.
And then, and then we'll deal with the extras like siblings and all that kind of stuff another time. So,
cool.
No, things are doing well, man. Things are doing well.
Nice.
Yeah.
We have a Christmas tradition too, but Santa fills our stockings. So,
yes,
awesome.
Santa fills our stockings too.
But they like to do ones between them. I get it.
Listeners, if you're listening with your family, earmuffs for a second. Santa's gonna say something that the kids can't hear. Anyway, earmuffs. Yeah, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So my son doesn't believe anymore, right?
What?
And
he's crazy.
So anyway, we don't like when our kids have asked me if I believe for a long time. I'm like, yeah, well, I've never seen them. Like I never answered the question directly. It was always just a little bit more about the reality. Well, I've never seen them. Well, I mean, I think I used to, but I don't know anymore. And like, if you were to hold the bell to my ear, maybe I wouldn't hear it ring. But if they've like asked and I didn't have the heart to like keep that stuff going, like if they're giving me the look like, Dad, no, seriously, just answer the bloody question. If that's their look, I give them the honest answer and I say, no.
Oh, I straight up lie.
I know you do. I know 100%. You do. So my son, he's been on that page for, I think 2 Christmases now, 2 Christmases. And so he enjoys wanting to be a part of my wife's ritual with stockings and that kind of stuff. My daughter, she knows none of us believe now because she's also had the same fervent question, like, tell me the truth. What do you really think? And that kind of broke her heart that she was the only one that believed. Mm-hmm. And this year, I think I forgot that because this year I was talking to her like she didn't believe. So I'm talking to her about the stuff like, oh yeah, and then the kids that actually believe still in this and that and all that other kind of thing. So anyway, it was kind of funny. So I don't know where she's at this year, but she still likes to pretend that all these things exist. I think she still thinks Santa's real, but the others aren't. Anyway.
Well, now that earmuffs are off, you're nuts. Our whole family believes.
Earmuffs are off. Earmuffs are off. We didn't really give them a timeline. Sorry.
No, that's true. Anyway, my week was good. We had a Christmas party on the weekend, so that was fun. And then on the Sunday, we had my daughter's birthday with our family. So we had a bunch of family over here on Sunday. And in the evening,
thank you for having us as well.
Yeah, it was fun. In the evening, we got to test out my bar thing, which was fun. In the evening, on Sunday, Logan comes up to me and he's like, my eye's itching. Like, there's something wrong. I do have an eyelash. So I'm looking, I'm like, no, it's red, but maybe you scratched it or something. It's not, I don't see an eyelash in there. So they're all opening gifts in the living room. And he comes up to me like 5 minutes later and he's like, he's in the bathroom. He's like, Dad. So I come over. I'm like, what? He's like, all I hear is, can you get Mom? But it's like a little wavy the way he says it. And I'm like, I'm here. What do you need? So I walk in the bathroom and this kid's face is like ballooning. Like his right side of his face is now swelling, like really big, all the way down into like the lower part of his face and his neck a little bit. And I'm like, I'm going to go get Mom. I walk over to the dining room and I'm like, or living room. I'm like, hey, Christina, come here for a minute. She comes over. Oh man, her and her sisters go into like code red. Anyway, she ended up having to take him to the hospital that night. And we don't know what caused it. The doctors couldn't figure out what caused it. They're not sure if it was it was something he ingested, but he's not allergic to anything that we know of.
So he's allergic to something likely, but we just don't know what it is.
Right. And all the stuff he ate was all the stuff he's eaten before. So anyway, we had the appointment then with the doctor this week, and because I want him to get tested, like to do the allergy testing or whatever. But apparently he needs to see a pediatrician who will get him to have that. I was like, he's 15. Like, come on, doctor.
Isn't it a weird stage?
Yeah, so silly.
Yeah.
So anyway, we're waiting now for that. But she's like, I think you should get him an EpiPen just in case. I'm like, fine. So we bought some stuff for normal stuff, and then just this EpiPen, and Christina's
$8,000 EpiPen.
They're actually not that bad. Like with our coverage, I think it was like $30.
So right. Yeah, I guess they are covered.
They didn't for a while.
I don't want to say who just in case but a friend of ours was saying that they never used to be covered. I remember them saying really much bigger numbers than that. Mm-hmm. So good.
Yeah, so thankfully pricing wise it was good. But other than that, the week it's been a good week. It's been really busy, but there's something to be said for like the brain and how, I had some really good news last week, and I think it's carried into, I'm dealing with the pain with my back, but because you have a direction and some actual stuff going on, it's that brain, man, can be an asshole, but it can also be really good. So it's been a good week, like positive. There's lots going on. I mean, besides the doctor and hospital stuff, like overall the week's been good upstairs in my head, and played some PoE. Nice. Lots of PoE, cool. Actually. It was funny. I know we're going to get into our PoE experiences and comments and stuff, but it was funny. I saw for a day, like an evening, my 15-year-old son was playing on the computer here in the office, and he had split screened it with Christina. So him and Christina were playing Path of Exile 2 together. It was hilarious to listen to, because like Logan is relatively new to PoE. But he's 15, so he knows everything. So he's trying to explain to her who she's picked a sorceress just because it was the very first character on the selection screen. And then as they're playing, it's so funny because I'm playing here in the office too. And as they're playing, he's trying to like tell her what to do. And she's like figuring things out. And then she's like, where's my pets? I just want minions. And I was like, oh boy, another sorceress minion player. It just made me think of you. Yeah. So, but they played for a bit, and then I made another character with him. So it was fun. It was a good week of PoE. I have my comments and my concerns and stuff, but overall,
we'll get there.
Fun experience, at least to watch them play split screen like that. It was really cool to watch them play for a bit. So
definitely.
Yeah.
I was going to give you actually a suggestion with your son, maybe having an allergy that could be a big deal. My dad was allergic to coconut, and to the point where it would just make him swell. Like if he had, and it's amazing what ingredients are and what, and when you're allergic to something, you obviously find out very quickly, but he had to be picky with the type of soaps and shampoos that he used, because if he just rubbed it on his body, it would swell. And
in that localized spot where he touched it, or?
Well, so there's times where he was using shampoo and he was positive it was the right shampoo, or the company switched the ingredients and, you're just used to buying the same shampoo. And so there were times where he was in the shower and all he was doing was washing his hair. And then all of a sudden he could feel his throat just getting thicker and thicker, and he couldn't breathe. And like, he couldn't like get out. He was losing all of his energy. And basically like, he was waiting to die or prayed that he lived. You know what I mean? It was like those circumstances. And just so little things like allergies can do crazy things. And just because you were mentioning like extreme swelling, I know it's awkward, but maybe pass that on, or like when you hear them showering, I know it's awkward age, but when you hear them showering, give a knock and be like, hey, just checking in. Like, like it's, well, until
I thought originally it was because of like touch. I thought somebody had maybe worn something different or whatever, but it was, it started going down the neck, and then he had it on his lower back, but we had sent him up to have to try and shower, thinking like get off whatever he had on him, but then they were under his arm. And then when they were at the hospital, it was like traveling down his arm. And so the doctor figured it was something that he had ingested, but we're not sure if there was something different in the cake that we didn't know about. I don't know. It's bizarre how it can happen. So he knows to be careful, but he's also 15. He's like, well, I'm going to try these things that I ate and see if it happens again. And Christina,
he's trying to replicate it.
Yeah, he's trying to figure out what it is.
I remember
which
those
has not
days.
gone
That
well
was
for
like
him with Christina.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So I've already decided I'll be telling her not to listen to this episode, but she's already decided that she the next time, I don't want to say will be worse, but she's had issues with allergies, and same with people in her family. And I guess the second time can be quite a bit worse. I don't know anything about allergies. So I was just like, hey, I told him he's so lucky mom's here, because I would have been like, take a Tylenol. I don't know what to do with that stuff. So anyway.
So since Christine is not allowed to listen to this episode, even though she probably will, why can't she?
Because she'll stress about that. I don't need to add stress. I'm a stress
it's
controller.
the holidays. Ignore reality. It's the holidays.
Yep, that's right. Well, you can't make up. You can't make up reality. You can be careful, but you got to also be careful about being stressed about things that could happen. That's where I struggle with it. Is you can't spend time being in this could happen stage, because anything could happen.
Totally.
So, I tried to click your This Week in PoE link, but their website's not loading for me, so I won't read it. But what is it? Well,
first I want to, for those that are moving to Path of Exile 2 temporarily or permanently, whatever it is, guild stuff would I'm still not getting the response. GGG actually had here. Actually, that's a good segue.
That's what I couldn't click on.
So a few days ago, down for maintenance. Okay, so just a few days ago, all it was another announcement from GGG saying, and this was on the Path of Exile 1 site, but still same thing, that customer support's just overwhelmed with emails, and to the point where their system actually couldn't handle the amount of emails, and there's a possibility that some emails weren't even sent properly. So if you've been waiting a long time, so it's kind of a contradiction, because they're saying,
do you want us to resend it? Yeah.
Right. We don't need you to ask your same questions again and again and again. It's not going to help their situation, because they're still going in chronological order.
Through, sure. Yep.
But at the same time, I've been waiting for some of my replies for a month now, since the account merging patch went through successfully. I've had some questions that still haven't been answered. And so I don't know if those didn't go through properly, or if I'm going to be bombarding them with a redundant message. So if you're one of those people where you've been waiting a long time, it might be worthwhile sending another message. But hopefully you'll get a reply soon. But anyway, that was what that only link that I've shared this week. There's lots of things that they posted, but we're
not going over all the patch stuff. Yeah.
But the point that I bring up isn't to criticize or whatever. Best of luck to customer support, because none of this is customer support's fault. They don't control any of that. They have their job description, and they use the resources available to them, and whether the company chooses to hire more people temporarily for the influx of numbers or not is not up to
I hope they don't, because you need people who know what they're talking about answering emails.
Sure. So, but thus, a month later, right?
Yeah,
I don't have answers to my guild questions and about money that I've spent with guilds. So the reason that I bring this up is because Justin and I have a Forever Exiled guild in Path of Exile 1 and 2. As far as we know, because GGG hasn't even put out any FAQs, which I do think is on them. They need to communicate a lot more with these things, even if they're unsure. They need to start posting about MTX stuff and stash tabs. Like when they posted their stash tab stuff, they just came out with their sale for this weekend coming up. And in that post, they included which unique stash tabs do carry over for both games and which ones don't.
Yeah.
And that actually kind of made me mad.
Because it was the first time you heard that, or why?
Because this is the first time from GGG they're actually talking about anything about MTX when it comes to either account merging or just transferring over to Path of Exile 2. And the first time we hear about it is when it benefits them because of a sale, not because they're thinking of us. You know what I mean? Like, so it bothered me. But at the same time, we don't have answers for how guilds are carrying over. Is a guild in Path of Exile 1 carrying over to Path of Exile 2? We don't think so. Currently, they're not. Justin and I had to create Justin did, like, that was the first thing he did. When he logged into PoE2.
Somebody stole my name.
That's right.
Someone stole tags. I was the first 4,500 people in, and someone had already taken the name tag, so I didn't want to lose the guild. And Ty is right. We don't know the answers, and it has not been clear. When I have looked into it in the past, 10 months ago, Jonathan said, yes, all guilds will carry over, all MTX for the guilds will carry over. But then apparently in a Japanese interview, he stated that no, you'll have to recreate the guilds, and you'll have to, like, the stash tabs for guilds won't carry over and the slots won't carry over, which we actually don't care. We just would like some clarification. That's it.
So Justin and I just don't want to spend the money on these extra tabs.
Yeah, we're doing
until
slots,
we know how MTX carry over. And so they have given us the ability to add guild slots to our guild for Path of Exile 2. So currently the situation is the only thing that Justin and I have control over is we have a guild and you can join it. It's separate from Path of Exile 1. So if you're just getting into PoE 2, we have a separate guild invite channel in our Discord that we'd like you to use. And then that makes it super easy for us and you, and you'll have an invite waiting for you as soon as slots are available. But because Path of Exile 2 is in a pretty alpha version of early access, we'll add them when we can, whenever we log on, and we're playing daily. So we'll add that when you can. But if there's an issue with GGG, you might have to wait a couple of days. But anyway, I just want to throw that out there because we hear you, we see you, we want to hang out. It is a separate guild, maybe permanently, maybe temporarily, but
I think it will be permanently. I can only add guild. I can only buy the guild slots in game. I think I don't know how it works. I think anybody can add points to the guild stash for being
Not
used.
Yet.
You can't. Only I can. When you're in game, you don't have the option to add guild points.
Oh, I don't know, because the dumb thing is that it's not like I used to do all our purchases for the guild on the website. I never went in game to do any purchases. And now you can't do any purchases for the game from their website.
No,
from
it takes
Path of Exile
PoE 1 website.
But when you're in Path of Exile 1, it doesn't specifically state Path of Exile 2. Yeah. So it's in a weird, unprepared state where
they're definitely not properly separated right now.
No, and it does add a little bit of confusion unless you're actually in the game. So that makes sense, that's going to be part of the delay, because you do have to wait till Justin is actually in the game to buy.
Yeah, because you have to buy the points, then you have to add the points to the guild. I'm curious how that adding points to the guild, like, can anybody do that? I don't actually know, but I looked at the slot, the stashes, and I saw that they were on sale, but I was just like, all I want is an email back, because we both emailed them, and them to just state, yep, they're separate, so that we can go, okay, cool, let's do this moving forward. But
here's my assumption, and I know it's an assumption. They don't know. That's why there's no copy and paste email going back to people asking about guilds. I think they made that promise, and then Jonathan said this in the Japanese interview. I've never watched it. I'm not going to.
I'm just going off of what I've read.
Mentioned. Right. So I just don't think they've found a way, but they're still hoping to, so they're not saying one way or another. That's my guess.
I don't think they're going to. I think they're way, way, way too late. I don't even know how they would have, to be honest, transferred over guilds. I don't really understand how they thought that was going to be a thing, because that would mean that the person who purchased it in PoE 1 would have to also have created it, or maybe just be I don't really know how they would have possibly made that transfer work, which is fine. But I just would like them to come out and say, hey, guilds. I mean, I feel like they're just, by not saying anything, that is kind of what they're saying, but it would be cool if they just officially just stated that they're not transferring them over.
Yeah, definitely need a lot more communication from them on a variety of subjects, but definitely MTX, because that's real money, and stash tabs too. So I'm tempted. Like, I haven't received any feedback yet from GGG about my account merging questions, so I'm still hesitant to say, yes, I want you to transfer all my MTX from my PC account to my Xbox account. Yeah. I'm still nervous about doing that, because we don't have any firm information on the guild. And if people are going to stick with Path of Exile 1 for a year or more, I don't want to screw over the people in the Path of Exile 1 guild and all of a sudden all their stash tabs
by transferring over them. Yeah.
Right? Like, if they're all remove only and then all of a sudden they have like no official tabs to play with, that would really suck. Now, if they're going to stay there, I'll transfer all my MTX, because all those other questions aren't really burning questions. Now that I've loaded Path of Exile 2 and I can see how account switching works on the main screen, how it works on both platforms that I play on, it's, like, I can answer many of those other questions now that it's this late in the game, but I still need to know what happens with the guild stash tabs. I have to. I'm not going to make any transfers. I just would like that
official. No, they're not. This 100%. Is what he said in a random interview. So, but I did look at them, because I thought, well, it's too bad. Like, people use the guild stash all the time when new leagues started to share stuff with others, especially unique tabs. But the whole which stash tabs transfer over thing, I don't actually care. I thought it was weird, because I noticed that probably only like 4 or 5 of my guild, my stash tabs transferred over. But I guess that's just because they're just not relevant anymore. Like the ones that they used to have. Like I've got the currency, the unique. There's an essence one. There's an ultimatum one, which I have no idea what that's used for. And then there's uniques. There's no maps. There's no waypoint stash tab, which is a little bit annoying. I assume that's going to come like that. It's weird to me that that has to come at some point, that there's a map tab.
Not to stir anything, because I have a lot of wonderful things to say. As we actually start getting into gameplay and moving off of the stash bit, I have lots of wonderful things to say. So don't be discouraged if you're listening and you don't care about stash tabs. But I have a question for you regarding that, because I noticed as well that the map stash tab was not available for purchase, but they must know people are in endgame. So
I've got just a tab now. I have to just throw random waypoints into.
So my assumption is that they're trying to convert the map tab that we purchased in PoE 1 into the waypoint system. I'm not even there yet, so I don't know how it works, but into a waypoint system. And they're, maybe trying to figure out like, what's the best way to organize it, right? Now that they're seeing how players are interacting with the end game, what's the best way to have these organized? So maybe that's what kind of the hiccup is right now. But I was a little bit surprised that the map stash tab was not available for purchase as the waypoint stash tab, or whatever they're going to call it for PoE 2. Would you be disappointed or frustrated if the map stash tab that you've already purchased in PoE 1 didn't transfer over? Would you be kind of pissed if you had to buy a new one?
So my opinion is no, but I'm also probably different than a lot of people in that sense. But it confuses me, because waypoints are way simpler than maps, because waypoints are just a tier. It's a waypoint tier 1. It's not a name. I'm choosing where to put that waypoint in the atlas when I'm gonna, it's not a map. I don't have a bog map anymore. That doesn't exist. There's no bog map. I'm using a waypoint on a node on the atlas. So the only thing I could think of is that you're going to have a lot of waypoint tier 1, waypoint tier 2s, and do you just have a giant stash tab that's just tabs of tier 1, 2, 3 all the way up to whatever it goes to, and they're just thrown in there? I'm not really sure.
Do they stack?
No, they can't, because you can roll them, right? So they can't stack. So they are their own individual item, just like a map would be. But the only thing I could think of with regards to them not transferring the map stash tab over is that maybe they haven't fully decided that this waypoint system is exactly how it's going to roll into. Like maybe they have an idea for changes, and so you don't want to redesign the map stash tab and then have to redo it or something. There's a problem. So I'm kind of okay with it. It's just a little bit annoying.
And, as much as I've been saying throughout this episode, like we need more communication on a few things, like especially revolving around purchases and accounts. But that's one thing that would be dangerous to mention. Like you don't want to say, hey, thanks for your patience with the map stash tab system. If what you're saying is what's happening, you don't want to tell people that, because then you're going to get an unbelievable amount of feedback on what should change. Whereas right now,
I'm sure they already are.
But I mean, imagine if people felt it was open for discussion.
Yeah.
As opposed to like, man, this really sucks. I know I'm barking at a brick wall here, but this really sucks kind of feedback.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I think it makes sense for them not to mention anything there.
Yeah. And I mean, play it a bit safer, I think, is probably the better way for them to go than to just blanketly throw out because I mean, the fact is, people paid for the map stash tab in PoE 1, and the waypoint is the end game system in PoE 2. So it was a little weird to me that it wasn't there. And I was trying to figure out what to do with waypoints now because there's nowhere for them. So some clarity would be cool that it is something they're working on. But I have a feeling that to me, it seems like with them, I looked at the Essence stash tab and the Ultimatum stash tab, and they're very different. So my feeling is like, well, the waypoint system to me is even easier because it's literally just tier 1 through whatever, 1,000. I don't even know what tier they probably go up to 10 or 15 or 17 or whatever kind of ID it used to be. I don't understand why they don't just have a waypoint stash tab that is just tier 1 through 17 and you can just go through them. I'm not really sure. That to me seems like an easier change than some of the other stash tabs that they've done. But if they haven't solidified that as their plan, then maybe that's why they're not doing it. So, yeah,
for sure.
How are we doing it? How do we want to do this week? I want to talk about your build. I want to talk about my build. I want to talk about the game. Like I got a lot of stuff I want to. I made notes, Ty. I made notes.
Well, let me start off with this. To me, the game is not in really a good enough state for what I would consider early access. I mentioned last week that, GGG's in a completely different realm. This is an absurdly complicated game. So what quality you would normally expect from early access, still knowing it's early access, like this game is in a world of its own in terms of complexity and how much a company could and should be able to figure out ahead of time. So I get that. But I am so amazed that even with all the stuff they're changing and how big they're changing and how quick they're changing things, I am still insanely impressed with their cross-platform working right at early access launch. It hasn't screwed up once for me, and it's been immediate. Like I'm talking like I sign out right now from the computer because my wife's going to play, and I don't wait for her to start. I just walk into the next room.
You can just pick
Xbox is already
cool.
on. I click, boom, my character's up, exact same spot, same instance, same everything. And I haven't had one cross-platform issue at all.
That's awesome.
Anytime I've wanted to talk to you, party up with you, travel to you, Aaron, Josh, all great. Like I have not had one issue. And to me, those are the things that other companies postpone. You know what I mean? Like, remember when Electronic Arts, way bigger than GGG, took over F1? Like the game, the simplest of games. Like it's such controlled environments. You know what I mean? Like it's like any of one of their other sports games, just a different engine because it's racing. And how long did it take them after taking over the company to get cross-platform working? And it still doesn't work right because it still can't do math and standings and points across cross-platform. It's insane how long it's taken them and how low on their priority list it is. Whereas for GGG, cross-platform has been solid since the very first day of launch, and I can't praise them enough for that. as a cross-platform, like I am your demo, not just me, of course. Maybe the numbers are small, but like I'm the exact player that benefits from this, and it has been perfect. So awesome job on that, GGG.
I think that is cool. I've been overall impressed with the controller support on PC and the swapping as well between it. The only thing I will say with regards to the first part of your comment, though, I actually think from an early access standpoint, this is like, I think they're way above the curve on what an early access would look like. I've played a lot of early access games, and I mean, I have my issues, which we're going to definitely talk about, but I think from an early access standpoint, they've done the game is massive. It looks beautiful. Yeah. It's playing pretty well. I know there's people that have been having issues with crashes, which is too bad. Josh was one of them too. He had to roll back an update on Windows to fix it. I don't know that it's specifically for Path of Exile though. Josh was telling me that there's other games that have been having issues with whatever that Windows update was. So that sucks when you're at the mercy of Microsoft's update for stuff like that.
Even one of the patch notes, I think it was part of their like live update, what we're working on notes, said that they're aware of an issue with tearing within the game and other things, and they're pretty sure that it has to do with, and then they name a specific Microsoft update. So
yeah, it sucks when that's the case, because like obviously they need to find a solution, but also sometimes Microsoft figures that out, and then there's a patch for Windows that fixes it. So kind of tough on their end. But let's talk about our experiences. I want to say the one thing that I don't understand is why they haven't built an in-game feedback system. I know when we were talking with Octavian once, he told us that there was the ability to type / something
bug, and then you could say anything you wanted and they'd get it.
And maybe that is still the case. I don't actually know. I haven't tested it in PoE 2. But when you right now, I think the only way to leave feedback is actually to go onto their forum on the Path of Exile 1 website and post. Maybe they have a bug report section in there. My problem is I'm not leaving the game. Even if I find something that's a bug or something's not working well,
right?
I'm playing. Like if you had a button in there or something for me to just quickly type something, I would do it. But I'm busy playing a game, and I don't want to leave and go to a website to post. So it's weird to me that there's no in-game. I think that they should have some ability for you to report a bug in-game. And maybe there is, maybe this /bug thing still works.
They need to let people know.
We didn't know for PoE 1 until we met. I don't even remember that was like after. It was recent, within the last year that we learned that. So that was my only
that's a good point. I mean, it is early access. The more feedback you get, the better, unless they all want it through maybe they're only looking at their website.
In their website for sure, because they can control that you're making a post and that they can respond, and I get it. But from a player perspective, I don't want to leave and go right on your forum, and I can't imagine I'm in the minority for that. I would bet the minority are the ones who are going to 100%. Post, and I think that's great that people are doing it. I just don't want to. I don't want to leave.
But I would think that there are a lot of people in your shoes. I give you a hard time for wanting to play early access and then like
not report.
You're helping the company with your stats, with the data, but
you're welcome.
You're not going to post a thing, right?
No, I'm not.
And so I like to poke fun at you. Anything that you want to bring up, give me a shout. I'll post on our behalf. But there's a lot of people I'm finding, and this is just from like what I'm, quote unquote hearing, but the amount of guides that there are already out, or like even the ones that are like legitimately posting as there's just builds, this is what I'm trying out, they're not trying to go for clickbait, but the amount of people that are following somebody's guide or build or what were we talking about?
Bug reports.
Oh, right. And the amount of progress that people have made, and how many people, like when I hear that, a prominent streamer is getting pissed because their build got nerfed 3 times in a row with all these different different builds getting nerfed, and then all these other people are getting screwed over because they're following these people. It's just kind of like there's so many people that are just playing this as a game.
Mm-hmm. Oh, for sure.
You know what I mean? It's not for the sake of helping out with early access or because they're excited for their feedback. to have a possible future in the game. It's just, this is a new release, and they're just treating it as a new release, and they understand it's going to be glitchy, right?
Yeah.
So the easier it is for them to post what's bothering them, the well, in a way, yeah.
Well, I mean, you're going to get garbage when you do that. Like, this isn't fair.
Yeah.
My attack sucks, or this skill is dumb. I get that. You are going to get that, but that. I don't know. I don't know the solution in the end. I thought it was interesting that there was nothing. It still confuses me that on the PC version, there's not a warning at the beginning on the screen like you get on the Xbox that just tells you you're playing early access. There's going to be bugs. If you find some, please report them on our, even a link to the website or something. I don't understand that. I don't understand why that they put that on a console, but they don't have it on PC. Their player base is by far bigger on the PC.
Right.
Why not put that up there to give people a heads up that you're playing early access? I think you talked about people following builds. I actually had a little bit of a note about this, which was I don't think that I'm underestimating when I say well over half of the player base forgets or doesn't know they're playing an early access game. I think that people very easily assume that they are playing a fully released video game, and there's a frustration when things change. And I think that's one of the biggest problems I have with like PoE 2 for me. And I know a lot of people I've talked to on our Discord, PoE 2 for me was this super exciting, fresh. It was a fresh game that I got to go into that I loved the previous one, but I got to go into it brand new. I got to figure out the tree. I got to figure out my build. How do I want to play it? Like that for me, I'm still in that mode. Well into that mode for sure of like trying to figure things out. How can I adjust my tree? What can I do with my skills? I knew that stuff in PoE 1. So for me, it's a really fun thing to relearn it. I think a lot of people come into PoE 2 and they get confused. So they watch a streamer, they watch a YouTuber, and they start following along with those builds. Maybe sometimes forgetting or just being a little bit ignorant to the fact that it's an early access. And if you found a build that's like insane, there's a chance they're going to do something about that skill or about that part of the or whatever it is. They're going to nerf it or change it. And I think the only spot that I would argue that GGG is missing the boat on this one is that they have made the cost of respeccing too high. And even that's hard for me to say because we played PoE 1. And the fact was respeccing in PoE 1 was brutal. It was very hard. You had to collect so many orbs to do it. And if you go back to the beta times of PoE 1, you just restarted your character. There was that was it. Like you messed your build up, you're done. That's not where Path of Exile and Grinding Gear games is anymore. They've made the ability to respec your tree with gold. They've made it much easier to feel like you have more control of changing your build. But in an early access environment where you've got all these new players who are potentially following other builds, I think the cost is astronomically way too high. I think it's fair in the full release when stuff is more stable, but
sure, it should be cheaper in early access for the sake of getting that feedback.
Yeah, and let them mess around. You don't want somebody to just quit because they can't get the gold. They've done a respec, something's changed in the build, and now they have no gold to try and fix whatever it was that they were doing before. Why not just make it cheaper so that, like, even for myself, there are things I would love to try within my build, but it would cost me too much gold and time to try them. So I won't try them, which is just unfortunate because I'm not going to get to experience some of the other parts of their tree or I feel like
it's a two-edged sword. It's unfortunate for you because you want to experience it. That's why you're thinking about it, hoping for it and considering it. But now GGG doesn't get that feedback,
right?
In-game data and or possible written
and at what cost?
Because you didn't get to experience
they could have just made it cheaper. There's a weird scaling that happens with the cost of respeccing. It's like you're penalized for being a higher level, as if like the gold drops become proportionately higher. They don't. Like, yes, of course they're higher, but they're not so high that I can afford to respec for 200,000 gold. And I'm talking obviously full respeccing. But the fact is, it is really expensive to do it. And it's a bit frustrating when I'm like, man, I really want to try going that direction. But I don't really, and I wasn't one of the ones who, I have not bought anything with my gold. I have not bought items. I've literally saved them for the thought of like, and fear of having to respec. So anyway, all that to say, I think because they have such a massive following now with Path of Exile 2 and a big player base. Sorry, Tyler just slobbered on
I was
himself.
drinking water and I dribbled all over my. Now it looks like my nipples bleeding.
It looks like you're leaking. They have such a massive new base of players in conjunction with their existing players that I think it's dangerous when people go to follow builds and something gets nerfed. The fact is, it's not even fair to say something gets nerfed. It's early access. They have to tweak numbers. They have not been able to test every single part of the game.
And if the tweaks are massive, that's fine. That's how it works. That's how balancing works.
Yep. Which I think is totally fair. I still think there should be a warning on the PC at the very, very beginning that really states to somebody that they're playing early access. Because it's funny. If you go to buy, so if you go to Steam and you go to buy Path of Exile 2 right now, I think it shows that it's an early access.
It does.
If I get a key, if I give somebody a key and they get that key, they don't get that warning. They just go and claim the key and the game starts to install on their computer. There's never any point where they're shown. I mean, it's early access, but it's not the same type of like you're committing to this. So I just feel like it should be on the front of the page. And I think that they should make it cheaper because the fact is in this game, people are going to follow builds. That is just going to happen. PoE 1 did it. You have a massive new player base of people coming in, people who are used to going online to find a build because the game is confusing or it's tough. And I'm not sure. I have no idea. This is anything against Twitchers or YouTubers. I have no idea if they put disclaimers in their builds that say like, this could change or whatever. Like, but I don't think the players should be penalized for that because that is what the game is. People are going to follow it. I think give them an easier or a cheaper way to respec, especially when you change something that maybe other people were playing without even knowing that it was a build maker that is doing that or whatever. And now they're kind of like, well, frick, my build's screwed. I need to readjust, but they don't have the gold to do it. And you don't want them to just quit because of that. At least
there's
in
a
early
few
access.
Things that GGG is working against GGG. And there are things that are unfortunate at the beginning, but it's trial and error at the end of the day. You got to see like right now. And I was hoping that because they were releasing, groups of skills, that those skills would have been balanced in their own ways. You know what I mean? Like, sure, there would be tweaks that would be needed, but I was hoping that the skills in terms of what they do and the algorithm that GGG uses to, okay, this skill should do this much damage because of these reasons, and this one should do that. I was hoping that they'd be a lot more balanced. And I get that the game will be astronomical, but in terms of gem size, it's small right now. And understandably, that's not the criticism. It's just the skills are like, it doesn't seem like they're anywhere near close to balance. There's some skills that just no matter what you do, they hit like crap. And then there's other skills that, of course, they've nerfed or certain combos, but then there's other skills that just they can carry you through the game no matter your investment. And I think, and that's fine. Like I said, early access is early access, but because this game is reaching so many new people and new people are coming in and they see some people are progressing like crazy and easily. And then they're like struggling and struggling and struggling. And then they die. And then all the monsters respawn in this massive area and they weren't fully explored yet. So you feel like now you have to do this whole area again. Again, fine concepts, but when the user, like especially a new player, doesn't feel like their skill is anywhere up to par, all they need to do is switch skills. Now you're unintentionally encouraging new players to just go the build route, follow a guide. This person's flying, they know which skills are good or not. So it's not even about if they like the build, it's about progress. And it's because there's such big difference in which skills are and which skills aren't balanced.
Well, I think they get less information back to when people do that. If everybody's playing the same skill, I was talking with Thalon in Discord and a couple other people. So I'm playing Warrior, and it took me a long time to like it. I actually at one point was having a conversation in my head, going like, "Why am I playing right now? Like I'm I feel like I'm doing this just because we have to talk about it, but I don't feel like I'm having fun. I feel like I'm getting really frustrated. The warrior's really slow. That opened up for me, way opened up for me once I opened up tier 3 supports. However, talking to other people who are also playing warrior, it's amazing how many people have just gone the same path. And you
because of efficiency.
Well, because you tested the skills as you went along, and you went, oh, that's for me. Sunder is what I'm playing. It's not what I wanted to play or plan to play, but I love Sunder. I love Sunder in PoE 1. I love the things fly out of the ground. Like, I love that. But I wanted to play totems and EQ. I had so much fun with it when we played in LA. I was hoping I could play that longer. The problem for me was it was just like waiting around for damage. I just couldn't do it. And so and then also the more I played warrior, I also realized, as much as I told you, I want to play the big hammer, blah, 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 do the things. You start to get tired of being really, really fucking slow. Like the long wind up in a game where it's like, here's 7,000 mobs that are coming at you, and you're like, hold on, let me. I'm in the middle of something.
Using my arm.
But it's crazy how many people have gone. Like, I was talking to him, and I assume he doesn't follow builds. I don't follow builds. We're like, our characters could be like identical twins. Like, they're so similar. I don't know that the trees are exactly specific, but the fact that we've gone the exact same route for how to deal with the game, it's kind of disappointing because there's not a big variety in it. But that also just comes down to the fact that there's less skills available. We don't have all the ascendancies out. Like, they're kind of guiding people to go a certain direction. And I'm only speaking from a warrior standpoint. I have not played any other classes.
But it's the same with minions. It's the same with casting and cold combos. It's a lot of unintentional cookie cutting out there. And maybe it's part of the end game problem too, right? Remember when Jonathan said a tiny bit ago that, we realized that we needed to have endgame, and so only a few months ago they started working on endgame, right? And to make sure that it was released for early access. And so now maybe, what if, like, nobody was expecting it? I mean, obviously it's an awesome treat, but I don't think anyway that people were actually expecting an endgame experience for early access, that it would just eventually come, just like all ascendancies would eventually come, all skills would eventually come, that kind of thing. I was expecting to play through half the campaign over and over and over and over, just try things out, right? And then you have your like Dominus as your final boss. Cool, okay, let's go. But maybe because they focused on endgame, they weren't able to focus on the campaign as much, including gems. Like, if you think about what if they just kept going on the path that they were going and ignored endgame, would all the gems that they released be an equal choice to one another, I guess you could say? You know what I mean? Sure, they would all have their own fair share of pros and cons. And yes, I know it's a massive game and all the other. I know it's Path of Exile, but and again, like, it's hard to know. Like, if we were in their shoes making these choices, we wouldn't know the best route to take. We would still hope for this and hope for that. Right, exactly. And so it's just one of those things where it's unfortunate that because of the balance of the skill situation, there are so many similar builds out there. In my personal experience, I ran into the exact same thing. I'm on my fourth full respec. I've fully respect my character, but I could afford to do it because I'm in my 20s for character level. I could afford to do it, but I'm in my third full respec. I'm on my fourth character just because I'm trying to progress. Like, I literally couldn't progress because I was using certain skills. I'm not playing the way I want to. I'm not playing a build that I want. I could not play the way that I wanted with the skills that were available. I'm not trying to do anything dummy. Like, I am playing knowing that the game's design for now is you, like, cast your 4 or 5 skills, figure that out, get these combos working, be situational. Like, I get that. I'm not trying to force some easy way. Force my old school way of playing in. I'm trying to play so that I can progress, and there's just certain skills that just say no. So, like, for one of those examples would be Ice Nova. Ice Nova, I went into like pure cold and spell damage on the tree. All the supports that I could have, I was going with hypothermia as for my curse. and doing damage with that, extra efficiency, everything that I could. And Ice Nova just was. So that was one of the examples of one of the builds.
Was it bad when you were trying to clear through areas, or did you just feel like it got bad at bosses? Because I did play a little bit of a sorceress with Josh and with Logan, and I was saying to them that I was playing with Frostbolt. I was definitely going the cold route because I love freezing stuff. It just looks awesome. But I was saying to them that this would be rough by myself, at least the way that I felt for me playing it. I felt like I was a support player. Like I was laughing at them. I'm like, I'm just here to freeze for you guys. Then you guys come in and kill it. But have you know, like it didn't feel like that in the clearing, but when we would hit to the boss stages, that's definitely when I felt it.
Well, there were enemies that I have to skip. Like if they had life regen, I was like, nope, goodbye. Like I just had no hope. Then does
the bomb one still do less regen? Because I know you get that at the beginning, but I don't remember if it has the less regen like
Frost bomb's okay if you reduce its duration, but it's only good once you unlock hypothermia. Only then do you have a chance.
Okay.
And there are some bosses, like imagine doing Frost Bomb that has a 3-second delay on that. What's that?
Anything that moves. Literally anything that moves.
That one boss that's like the Chimera, but it unlocks the first trials that you can do.
Oh, that jumps
it's like
all over?
Dancing around.
Yeah. I was like, just get on one of the towers.
Try Frost Bomb with that.
Yeah. I get it.
Good luck. Like you can, it required so, like I was actually using Frost Bomb at that point with hypothermia on that one, and like there's ways to actually get it to one specific spot, but it was a chore.
Did you feel like getting to that boss though also felt like it wasn't working, or is it just if you hit certain modifiers on mobs? It felt like
I was forcing myself to use the skill. The reason I'm still at that situation was because I'm just tired of respecking and trying something new. So the very first boss I came across, now I was doing mostly co-op, so maybe my builds were weak throughout the process. I don't think if I wasn't doing co-op that I would have been able to finish Act 1. Because in Act 1, the guy who turns into the wolf, right? And then you have the fog all around.
Or whatever, yep.
Right, and then he's dashing at you. Well, that's when all of the extra mobs come in to refill your flasks. But there's no tell, not that I could see. And we did the
of
boss
where he was zooming across.
Right, which is ridiculous. Like the whole point of those minions.
I never came out of there with more flasks.
Right, I always came out with less. And to add blind attacks to a boss fight is just so, that's a PoE 1 thing. That's so anti-PoE 2.
If it was like debuffing you or something, it would be cool, but it was doing like chunks of damage.
It was, but here's the thing, like I have to be able to clear that. Otherwise I'm screwed. And could I do that with Ice Nova? Not a chance.
Was Ice Nova like your primary source of damage?
Yeah.
Okay.
At the time.
Yeah.
But like I'm playing co-op, so I don't really know how weak it is.
Sure.
But if I was doing that solo, I would have had no hope. Now that's one benefit to the current skill system is if I'm getting extra support unsocketed, what are they called? Unset gems dropping, I can just change that up quickly. Not the tree, but I can change the gems up and try and come up with combos that still fit my tree. So, okay, there's some wiggle room there that doesn't require respecking, and that has been a nice benefit to trying things out. But so that one would have been bad, but then I was able to progress while my wife was at work the other day, and I was finishing Act 1, or we finished Act 1, so I was starting Act 2. So I don't know if people remember the Wrathbreaker boss. It's like the boss that's in between starting. Yes, with the hyenas. Yeah. It's the boss that's in between starting Act 2 and actually getting to the home or Act 2 encampment, right? The caravan. That boss has lots of off-screen damage, which is unfortunate, from the north, from all those
stupid range
centaurs throwing their spears, and then their own version of glacial cascade or whatever from the cliffs. So that on its own is just a frustrating thing. Off-screen damage is always going to be stupid. But because of and I'm staying at the top, like I know that there's the bottom section where the hyenas come from, and then there's the top section where the Wrathbreaker stays. And I'm staying on the south side of the top part because I don't want that off-screen damage, but that's encouraging all the hyenas to constantly come. I don't have the ability at character level 12 or 13 to have that kind of clear damage and do boss damage and somehow survive. Like, to me, that is like, you do melee slams. Okay. Great.
If you can get it off.
Right. But there was no way that I could do that as a caster. There was no way. There was no skill I could do. I had to, and I couldn't use skeletons. Like, I was trying to go pure minions by this point, and I've invested in minion revive rate. I've invested in minion survivability. They did not survive at all. The end of Act 1, that boss, that must have all been Aaron. But then when I get to Wrathbreaker, like, as a minion player that's not using SRS, I had no hope. No hope. Now, I did start as a sorceress instead of a witch, but those beginning clusters I don't think should be the end all and be all of a minion build.
They are pretty big, but I do know what you mean. But they are pretty big.
And so I'm starting as a sorceress, but I've right away, all I'm doing, like, I'm beelining to minion survivability, and they don't stand a chance. Like, they're down for the 10 seconds. They're up for a split second, then they're down. Like, they just had no hope. And so I had to respec to do the Wrathbreaker. And unfortunately, I had to use SRS. Like, that was as a minion player, I had to use SRS. That was the only
you don't like
skill.
You don't like that you had to? Like, is your argument or frustration that you were forced to use that? Like, that was the thing that made it work?
Right. So here's the thing. I know it's early access. I know that I'm going to need to do this. So 2 things. As a player, it's just a frustrating experience. Like, that experience isn't fun. But I know it's early access. So the criticism isn't that the skills are unbalanced. I mean, they are unbalanced.
It's sort of
I shouldn't have to use SRS. But as a player, it's frustrating that I have to use a certain skill to get past it, because I was spec'd into means I had to use SRS, right? So that's frustrating. So hopefully that aspect changes. I think that boss fight is just way too much for what the character has available to them to spec into at that point. So there's been a few times throughout my progress, and I'm still in Act 2, but there's been a few times where I've come across situations where I'm like, I'm not sure what the company's expecting of the user here. Unless I'm using like a cookie cutter build, like what we were talking about before, where these are the skills to use because you can progress through the game. It's not in a state where theory crafting is rewarded or relevant. You know what I mean? Like, I don't feel like I have multiple options to progress. So right now I'm in a state where I'm just tired of respecing to match the opportunity, even if that's the state that early access is in. And so my experiences with gameplay right now aren't the funnest, but I'm not having a difficult time remembering that it's early access. So I'm not discouraged by it. I'm writing my feedback and I'm going through, and it's good for people too. Like, when you are finding that you're at these stalemates and these walls, write that feedback if you can, because that does help. Hopefully they're willing to change it. GGG has had some massive not bugs. I mean, patches. Sure, they have a lot of bugs, but yeah, some huge patches, and they've been willing to change a lot. I think one thing they should stop doing is apologizing.
Have
like
they been?
in some of their tweets, they're like, we're sorry, but we've come across another thing. Like, cut that sorry out.
That. No way.
Early access.
Guess what, guys? Boom.
In the process of early access, we have found another thing.
They should never ever be apologizing for that.
Like, as a player, it's been a pretty unfun and frustrating experience, because I'm trying to go through and do the theory crafting, but I am excited that it's early access. And like, when I'm not doing anything, I can't wait to play.
Sure.
Like, so I'm not forgetting it's early access. I'm not actually having fun in early access because I'm playing ways that I don't want to play. And I'm still not trying to do the whole one button thing. I'm trying to play this.
It's easier on controller to not do a one button, which is nice.
Very much so. But it's still, I'm feeling funneled in. So I hope skill balancing becomes a little bit more of a priority, just for GGG's sake, because then guides aren't going to become as relevant for new players. You know what I mean? Those guides, people are still going to click on guides no matter what. But if you can make a new player feel like their choices are efficient, that's the direction you want to go. You can still keep it difficult, but if I see one player with absolutely garbage gear that's with me, at the same level going boop, 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 bouncing around like a pinball because they're killing things like crazy. It's frustrating. So just for their sake, like Wrathbreaker was one of those where it was like really eye-opening,
frustrating,
the disparity of certain skills. And I get that there's certain skills that are going to work with some bosses and others aren't. I like that about these kind of games where certain bosses are going to be a big pain in the butt for certain archetypes and much easier for others, where another archetype's going to have an easy time. But overall, I'm having a lot of fun. We should talk about our builds before we sign off, specifically. But overall, I'm having fun, but I'm not. Like, my gameplay experience is primarily frustrating, but I'm loving that it's early access. I'm loving writing feedback. And when I have spare time, I'm not reading my book. I'm not writing my book. I'm like, we're beta. Let's get in the beta.
That's been me going to bed thinking, like, what can I adjust with my build? For me, so I'm playing Warrior, I went Titan. It was unlocking the tier 3 supports that really opened the build up, which I think is I don't want to say the build, the character.
What level was that? Level 3?
It's like it's like at least towards the end of I think it was towards the end of Act 1 in Cruel. It was a bit, like it took me a while.
In Cruel?
I think it was in Cruel by the time of the tier 3 ones. I think. I could be wrong. I don't want to, I shouldn't specify that. I could be wrong, but it was a long time. It took me a long time, but it made a big difference to being able to make Sunder feel good. The thing that I'm, okay, so the one thing I wanted to shout out is the fucking music. Man, I have jacked that music up as loud as it goes. It is so good. I was doing maps last night and I just love it. It's so good at setting a mood for whatever area you're in. I can't say enough. I loved it. On the build side though, I don't get Titan, and I've gone Titan, and guess what? That's it. You can't change. I don't understand that concept either. Why can I not become a Warbringer? Like, I'm an Ascendancy is a permanent choice. It wasn't like that before, but I cannot understand the Titan archetype of the Warrior in Endgame. And here's why. The archetype for Titan is I'm a beast. I can smash and I can kill bosses. The whole focus is on your damage to stunned enemies, how you build up your stun. Like, that's where the focus is for the Titan character. Unless you go the route of like, hey, here's your rucksack and extra slots, and here's your, which I haven't even tested that one yet, but it is probably very good. But its primary focus in all of its things is doing more damage to stunned enemies. You're in the warrior side of the tree, so there's a lot of stun, there's a lot of armor break. They've given you supports that will guarantee your armor break when you heavy stun. That combo though is good for tanky characters. That combo is good for tanky enemies. That combo works amazing. Man, fighting bosses, I was talking to Thalon about it. I don't even want to do the process to the boss. I just want to fight the boss. It feels so fun to have a character that I built up in this way that I get to actually get off my heavy stun. The heavy break hits. I get to use my cry. I get to do a Sunder. I get to work with the aftershocks. Like, that's what the build is around, which you don't feel clearing to the boss. You feel it when you get to the boss. And then I get to endgame and there's no bosses. There's no bosses in a map. Are you
serious?
You have to kill the rares. That's what completes it. Unless you go to a spot on the atlas that has a boss symbol, that will specify that there is a map boss in there. But in general, most of them don't have bosses. So for me, I kind of felt like,
I did not know that. That's ridiculous.
Well, it might be their design, and it's fine if I could understand it. But then I struggled to understand, like, why am I building? I went to bed last night going like, how do I adjust this? Like, should I be focused? Do I need to find a way? Like, I had committed in my head to, I'm playing a warrior. The warrior is focused on slow attacks. Let's try and make slow attacks work. That's where my head went through in this last week of playing. I'm going to just focus in on the fact that I'm going to be slow, but how can I make them big? And then I got to maps and I was like, well, I'm just running around looking for the rares. And the fact is, I don't get most of my combo on the rare. Like, I can clear it. It is hard. Like, fuck, man, maps are tough, especially with a slow character. But it's really frustrated me that I wasn't actually getting to use my skills because there wasn't bosses to actually use my skills on. And it really sucked the fun out of my build real quick when I started going through these things going like, I didn't build him for clear. Like he can clear, but that wasn't, I was playing him to like be a boss killer, and now there's no bosses. And that was a little bit defeating when I got to the end game to know that there's only certain nodes on the thing, on the atlas, that have bosses. And the fact was I did one and I never got to see the boss because I died during the waypoint, which I don't have a problem dying. I don't like the idea that you die and it's just done. Like you got to start a new waypoint, or I think they're called waypoints, right? I don't like that. I don't understand it. Waystone. I don't like that I just lose it and I'm out and you got to do a new one, especially. So I'd always thought that there was talk that if you do the node and you die, that the node is dead. It doesn't seem like that's the case, at least not in the starter area. But if you do the map, the Waystone, and you die, whatever modifiers there were above that slot disappear. So now there's no more boss. So now I can't even try another Waystone to try and find who the boss is or fight a boss. Now I have to clear that node to try and work to another boss slot and hope that I can kill that one. So it felt a little really tough for me on the build, because I was like, man, I don't know how to build a warrior. I don't know how to build a warrior to be fast and cleary, unless I switch to Warbringer, but I still don't think it's going to be fast. But that was my whole thing was like, I want to be a beast. I want to go in and fight a boss. And then there were no bosses. And I was like, well, because the fact is, if you get swarmed in this game as a warrior, a billion beetles will crush me. I have no way of clearing them until my guy gets through his animation, which I have loved finding ways for solutions. Get up my stun threshold, work on. I think the game for me will feel way better when I get my resists up, because, it's Path of Exile. If you don't have your resists high, you're in trouble. And I don't. I just got to end game and I don't have them high, so I know it would make a difference. But it just sucked to not be able to feel like the full effect of why I had built my build, and then trying to wonder like, what am I supposed to do different? I don't know what to do with a warrior to make him faster, because I want to be a mace hit. I want to hit. But anyway, I'm just kind of babbling right now, but it was a little bit frustrating to get to the end of the game and then go like, oh, I have to find,
I can imagine, yeah,
nodes with bosses, and then hope I don't die on the process to the boss, which, it's possible to happen. The whole, let me just grind my gears for a second. The whole losing when you die, the Waystone is dead, I think it's stupid. I don't get it. I'm sure there's a reason behind it, but I disagree with it. You give me 6 portals, let me use 6 portals. I don't understand that whole concept of like, I really don't understand why are there 6 portals. Sorry, I'm just marking the cough. I got confused there. Why are there 6 portals if I can only do 1? I think that's silly. And the other part is the respawning of monsters is not fun. It is, for me, it is not fun at all, especially.
I guess that's campaign only, right?
Campaign only, yep. Yeah. But I mean, we only played 3 acts. There's going to be 6. I don't like it at all. They have not made sure that checkpoints do not have monsters on them. So you can sometimes just like load into just a bunch of monsters waiting there for you, which is not fun either. But I just, the respawning of them, it just sucks to not know what you went up against that you died to if you didn't catch it, and you can't go back to find out what that was. And the losing loot is just, it feels gross. Like it's just an exalt. I lost an exalted orb, but that felt, Christina was watching me and she was like, oh, so you can't get that now. I'm like, no, it's gone. And she's like, oh, I get what you were saying, because she had heard the episode, but it was just frustrating. I was like, but it was there. I killed it and then I died, but I died to something stupid, some stupid friggin' on ground death effect, which terrible. They're in zones where you have to walk over them or just wait for them to dissipate. Why? That's not supposed to happen. So I really, really like the warrior. I really like it, but I don't understand the purpose of it anymore. Now that I'm realizing that endgame is like, am I supposed to have a different build for clearing these waystones until I get to a boss related one? But that's not what I want. I don't want to play multiple characters. I want to have a character that can do it, but I haven't been able to understand what the purpose is of the Titan. If you
have a boss killer, but you come across bosses so
they're super rare. So anyway, I like the warrior. I love the feeling of the kathunk. You know, it's a little slow. I'm trying to figure out ways that I can make it faster. But I'm struggling to get why. That's where my struggle has been.
It's interesting. Like, even if you come up with a really good reason as to why there's no bosses, or why bosses are the way they are in Endgame and where they're situated, it still is a massive deviation from the first game. Mm-hmm. The first game, it was bosses everywhere because you were guaranteed a boss every map. And sure, maybe there's a lore reason, or maybe there's a creative reason for whatever it is. Like, and I still don't mind that. Like, when I first heard that rares were how you completed the map, I thought that was on top of also killing the boss.
Yeah, I did too.
And I play this game, even though half of the bosses that I've come across so far have been more irritating. Like, they have not been fun. Yep. There's been some boss fights where I've thought they were amazing and fun, and I died 100 times to them, but I thought, like, man, like, I'm enjoying this.
But then there's other bosses. When we were playing together in the grotto, and I was like, oh, he's there. The Titans, was it called? The Titans, whatever, where you're underground.
Titans grotto, yeah.
Did you do that one? Did you get to the boss in there?
I think so.
It was a stone guy with a sword. I don't want to say anything.
Yeah. I did. I did.
Comes from the bottom.
He walks up. It looked cool.
Oh, the fight was brutal. But man, did it ever look cool.
It was. That fight is very glitched, unfortunately. I'm sure it's going to be epic, and it's too bad that this is the fight that's glitched, because that was
what part of this
situation is in many trailers that they put out. So the hitbox for the boss is only the arms. The torso, you cannot hit the torso at all, which
I think that's meant to be. I feel like that's
it doesn't matter if it's meant to be. The user can't tell until after trial and error. Like, when you have a big enemy in front of you, hitting the enemy is what the user is always going to assume. Like, I thought some skills weren't working because the boss wasn't taking any damage.
Yeah.
It was only until a little bit later that I realized that I had to aim for the arms, which
Ethan messaged me about that one too, because he wasn't understanding it.
It's basically Kitava.
Yeah.
So imagine not being able to hit Kitava's torso and you could only hit the arms.
Yeah.
Same thing. Like, that would be stupid.
Weird.
But then there's also
coolest setting. Well, I don't know. I haven't seen trailers. Setting. Maybe I missed it, but I was like, oh, this is so cool. Anyway, sorry.
One of my notes down here is the world is so cool. Like, the Titans Grotto has all those Titans that are like dead, or like they're in just the weirdest and craziest and most gruesome statuesque positions. And I love it. Like, it's just like how I constantly say about Dark Souls games, you go into that environment and you have a lot of questions about the history of this place, right? But then you go into that fight and you can't target the torso, which doesn't make sense from a user standpoint. Even if it takes you half the fight or 4 fights to figure out, it's still stupid. But then for any of the ground skills, so curses, they don't hit the enemy. They never hit, but before it would be an AoE in Path of Exile 1 where anyone in that AoE would automatically get cursed. In Path of Exile 2, a curse you put on the ground, it has a duration, and then it activates. And only then enemies within that AoE, then do they get cursed.
Okay.
So it's a ground effect first, just like grenades would be with Path of Exile. And so apparently mercenaries, people that are going crossbows and grenades, maybe I'm the only person playing with a curse, but curses, you can just cast them and they go right off the cliff. Like, there's no limit. Sometimes it catches, but so often. And for me, curses are like 150 mana a cast. Like, that's a lot.
So it's a waste,
I've had to really focus on mana regen because I'm deciding to play with a curse. And like, I'm missing a lot. So I'm having to actually position my character to make sure I'm aiming at the arm. Yeah, but then there's also there's lots going on. Like, it's a boss fight. I'm supposed to be fighting the boss. I'm not supposed to be fighting the edge of this cliff and then specifically only aiming at an arm. Like, that's different. So anyway, like, it was cool. It was epic, but unfortunately it's so glitched that it wasn't a fun experience, but it was nice to finally beat him. I had to add lots of damage to that build because there's a few parts of the fight that you can cheese, so you're almost never taking damage in those places.
Right in close quite often was pretty good. Yeah. I did roll one time and almost actually went off that edge. My character went off into the void and then rolled back as I was rolling. I was like, don't die.
That's right. There's a few times where I got fisted into the oblivion. Oh, if you know what I mean. So, but yeah, like it's, I forget how we got onto that, but
sorry, I just brought it up because you were talking about
stuff.
I don't know. I actually don't know. Right. I don't remember the process. Anyway,
that's
that I talked
bosses,
about my build
because we were talking about bosses. Yeah. So yeah, the bosses. This isn't the same game. Doesn't matter what you do,
which is fine.
Right. Well, it depends. I played Path of Exile 1 because of bosses. I didn't like a lot of the boss fights, but I played Path of Exile 1. Like, to me, ARPGs, yes, it's about the clearing too, but to me, ARPGs are about the character that I can build to fight epic enemies. I'm not at anywhere, like if you made this game and you told me that there weren't bosses, I'd probably play a worse ARPG that had bosses, right? So now that I'm learning that there's not a boss for every circumstance that I come across,
it feels weird really after playing Path of Exile for as long as we played to get a map completion or a zone completion when I've just killed a rare. I did, like, it's a weird feeling because I'm just so used to it being from killing a boss. I was going to message you yesterday though and tell you that I had made the world's slowest map clear. It is
oh yeah, I'll challenge that.
Oh dude, you could not be slower than that. It is but it I don't actually care if I have a slow clear if I could fight more bosses, and that's my hope is that, and that could change. I feel like endgame, maybe that's why we're not seeing a Waystone stash tab like we talked about earlier. Like, obviously endgame is not in its final state. Like, this is
totally
not the final way it's going to be. So my hope is that there's more options for bosses, because otherwise I should play something else. Like, it's not meant to be, and I don't care if it's not a map clear. I'm totally fine with that if it still has a purpose. Right now, I don't feel like my character has a purpose except just slowly work your way through a map and then randomly get a completion. So I think it was cool to get to the end. I actually played later last night because I was like, I gotta get to maps. I gotta get to maps before I talk to Ty. The acts were really cool. I really like I really like the way that the acts interact with each other. It's really cool what happens at the end of Act 3, both in the normal version and then Cruel, because they have to make it all work, which confuses me a little bit with how they're going to make this work into Act 4 and 5 and 6 later on. But it's been fun. I think one of their big struggles too, though, is just we talked about there not being enough skills, but the fact is there are so many skills. And it's so different now because I have an uncut skill gem or an uncut spirit gem or an uncut support gem. It's not the same as when I used to have Sunder drop. I picked up Sunder knowing I had Sunder. Now I can click on this uncut skill gem and I have a ton, almost too much choice, because that doesn't equal a skill anymore. It equals a billion of them. And for some reason, that's overwhelming.
Well, it is, even with this current state, because now you have every build available to you with the restriction of your ascendancy. Okay, like what if you had another sweet weapon just laying around? Like, you even have the automatic weapon swap now, which is still, I haven't had the opportunity to use it yet, but that's amazing. Just one button auto switches your weapons, and I love seeing both weapon checkmark boxes available when you're looking at your spirit reservation. Like, is this available only on one or on both? And I'm just like, oh, I can't wait to get to that stage. And like, it's this really, really cool, the different options there. And then when you get to the prospect of, okay, there's only 40 active skills and 60 supports, all of a sudden that is a lot to do. And so, okay, where's that guide? But imagine when they actually have
all of them.
Oh, like, you're gonna have, they do need to come up with a different screen. You have to. When you go show all,
controller. it is way worse on controller.
I can imagine. A lot is worse on controller. The menu hopping and the clunkiness of menus.
I'm not used to the clickiness of it. Like there is,
it needs to be fixed.
But like there is something to be said for being able to control the mouse and move it to where I want to see things versus the controller pops up that big window all the time. I don't know why, but I find it much harder to navigate. The worst part about controller for me, to be honest, is Global 2121, our global chat. I don't see it very often. It seems much smaller with controller UI, but I don't know how to do anything. I don't know how to I don't even know how to look. If somebody links an item, I don't know what to do. Thank God you can use the mouse, but I can't remember if it actually even gave me the UI pop up with
you
the
can
mouse.
Only, and this is a glitch, a bug report that I have for Path of Exile 1. You can only see the first item linked. It doesn't show you multiple. If you link me 3 items, it'll only show me the first one. It won't show me all 3. It doesn't give me the ability to look through them.
And I don't know how it was with Path of Exile 1, but with Path of Exile 2, I sent you a scepter one time. I was like, hey, are you interested in this? What I noticed is on controller support, you only saw the scepter and the stats. You actually didn't even see that first implicit that was like level 12 skeleton warrior. That part doesn't even show up. I was like, that's weird that part of it doesn't show, but it's an adjustment. A controller for me has been way better gameplay wise, but way worse UI experience wise. Yeah. Like I'm struggling to understand it. It could just be me not knowing it, but like even transmuting something. Is there a fast way to swap between my stash and my inventory besides just holding to the right to like get over there? Like if
flicking the right analog stick.
It hasn't. Okay, I'll try it again.
But they have a lot of work to do in that department. Especially because flicking the right analog stick does something different depending on the tab that you have.
Oh, really?
And right now, like they just need to overhaul it, because even if you're just in the character screen and you're looking at your stats, flicking the right analog stick does the weirdest things. It's supposed to be like from how Path of Exile 1 works. If you're just in your character's inventory and you flick the right analog stick left or right, it just takes you to the far end of that
corner, right? Or something. Logan was showing me that on
to the corners.
Yeah.
And if you're in the middle and you flick down, it takes you to the bottom in the middle. But now they've added this awkward thing where with controller, you can't access the blank squares in your inventory.
Which I don't like.
I don't like it either. And I know they're trying to make things
Was it like
quick.
that in PoE 1?
No, it wasn't.
Oh.
Only the gems tab itself was like that. You couldn't highlight an empty space. But now the inventory is like that too. But then sometimes like on the div card tab in PoE 1, sliding the right analog stick, flicking it would change the zoom in level of the div tab. So you couldn't do the flicking. So there are going to be some tabs where you can't, but there are some screens where it just takes you to the weirdest place. Or like when you select a gem and you bring it over, then all of a sudden your cursor's in like the top right of your screen, like it's highlighting your shield or something. So there's just a lot of glitches that, I mean, that's what we're here for, right, Just? You're going to write up all these reports.
It works really well. Like I was really impressed. I could control my tabs. I could set stuff up for sale. I could move around, but I still don't understand stuff. I have never, ever had anxiety in Path of Exile, ever, in any version of this game, ever, until I had to do a trade with controller. Holy balls. People were messaging me for this item, and I was like, I don't think I want to do it. I don't actually know how to invite them. I had to message you, like, how do I even get their name? How do I click on them? And so then somebody did it. I was like, all right, I'm going to try it. And sure enough, this person accepted right away. I was like, no,
but be careful because the invite player is right next to kick, ban, and report forever.
Somehow I accidentally invited somebody to guild. So
I saw them join the guild, and I'm like, oh, I didn't see that note in our Discord.
Nope.
Then 2 seconds later, they left the guild, and I'm like, oh, that's a trade gone wrong. I know how close those buttons are. I always love it when like the most severe negative button is right next to the very commonly used button.
Kill, hug.
That's right. That's right. So that's cool. I'm glad you're playing with controller. I'm glad, like, I know that we've talked about some of our frustrations with this one, but keep in mind, people, that we're just normal. 2 buddies talking, and we're enjoying like we both mentioned. Hopefully the things that we've said that are positive have stuck out while we've mentioned some of the things that frustrate us, because
we're
obviously playing It's dominated our whole week. None of us feel motivated to play. Like if we hated this game and we moved on from Path 1, we would still be a podcast. We would just talk about other games, right?
Yeah.
So we're still really enjoying the process. We've both this week, luckily, both constantly remembered that it is early access. Mm-hmm. So yeah, some stuff you go through just because you're excited for the game doesn't mean it's going to be a fun experience. And so we've talked about that. But there's lots that's gone really good. Justin's mentioned the positives of his character already that he's really liked. For me, my current state of my character is I've decided. So I've asked some questions. All right. So sorry, I had a bathroom break and I don't remember what I was talking about.
Something about your build.
Something about it. So I've respect a few times now trying to get through progress. I'm treating this not like I'm treating this like early access. I'm not treating this game like just a game where I'm just trying to progress as fast as I can and, you know, be the first to this or know everything about that. Like I'm treating it like this is how I want to play the game. This is the build I want to do. Let's try and do that.
Yeah.
And
do you think that's sometimes where the frustration lies, is you get an idea in your head of what you want to do and sometimes it's counter to maybe how they're set up or how their stuff's working?
I think at this stage it's not counter to how GG wants us to play, because like I said, I'm still trying to
actually want us to play.
I know that this game, they're encouraging combos, right, with different skills and setting things up. So I'm not like discounting that or trying to exclude that, but if a skill's available to me, I'm going to assume that it's good enough for the state, right? But there's a lot of situations that I'm coming across. And again, I've already touched on this, on the skill balancing, and hopefully it becomes a thing where skills are much more balanced soon. Like maybe they do a big pass on it, because then it'll encourage people to be able to play on their own as opposed to use guides. But for example, zombies in Path of Exile 1 are available right after you kill Hillock, right? They're one of the first skills available, but even if you only focus on minion survivability and you just rush to those nodes and you select everything that you know, even if you know everything about minions and you rush to them, zombies can't survive the Act 1 experience. They are hopeless in bosses, and you don't get the ability to even guarantee yourself corpse until Act 2.
Yeah.
So to me, there's like, why would you bother with that skill?
You can get corpses in Act 2?
Desecrate.
Oh, you do get Desecrate?
No, Desecrate doesn't exist in this game.
Well, so what do you get in Act 2 then? What do you mean when you say...
So, well, no, I'm talking Path of Exile 1. Like you would get Desecrate in Path of Exile 1. So that's already... But that's after you need it.
Yeah.
Once you get zombies to Act 2, they're not... You can make it so that they don't die. Like that's not a problem. So Desecrate's available for more than just zombies. But if you look at zombies, you can say... Okay, GG, why are these here? Like, they're just useless. Just make them available later, level differently, you know, that kind of thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of that in this game right now, where I'm in Path of Exile 2's early access, where I'm trying out a skill. I'm using, like, it's at the max level that I have available to me, and I'm like trying to fully support it, both with my tree and other supported active or support gems, and it just doesn't cut it. It's just not good enough. And so I'm going in with the assumption that these skills are available because they're going to be beneficial to me right now. And maybe that is the intention. Hopefully they're not using the same apathy, like, you know, the example that I just used with zombies with Path of Exile 1. Hopefully they're going into this with the exception that, yes, these skills are becoming available, not because of some, you know, algorithm that they have in the back end, and this is how they should be laid out, but that they've thought about it. And yes, these skills are good for the circumstances that we're providing in Act 1 or Act 2 or in this area or not. Or yeah, it'll be tough with this, but it's doable. It's just, that's going to excel in a different area type of thing. So that's what I'm going in with, the assumption that these are thought through. I've already mentioned the comments on whether they're balanced or not, and that's fine. So my experience has had multiple respecs, right? Especially around getting into Act 2. Going through the Wrathbreaker was a very frustrating experience. So I had to, I'm talking every single node is different on my tree, and I've done that 3 times. I'm currently now at a state, so I've completely given up on zombies. I don't really I know SRS is efficient, but I'm finding that I don't like the setup for SRS And I think it was the same thing. Like we have a member of our community, Theta, who is really big on the Herald of Agony and how, and I like the concept of the skill I really liked. It was just, I didn't like having my damage as the reservation. Like I didn't like having my minions as the reservation. And now that's a big part of this game, right? So I'm not a huge fan of SRS, especially with the fire skills that they have right now. They don't really.
How does SRS work now? It's a support, right?
So it's a reservation. And
okay. So it's
every time you cast a fire skill, SRS minion pops out for a small duration.
So you have to cast something fire related.
Yeah. So let's pretend you have Fireball. Every time you cast Fireball, an SRS shows up.
I get it.
And there's a limit of 10 SRS and they have a short duration. So like all that's fine. But the fire skills don't interest me.
Yeah. And it has to be a fire skill. I get it.
It does. And they've already changed. And now I actually do really like Incinerate. As just in general, I used it lots in Path of Exile 1 as well. But it's a channeling skill, Incinerate. And they've already changed how SRS functions with Incinerate already. But I still wish it worked differently. When you start casting SRS, you get 5 SR. Or sorry, when you start casting Incinerate, you get 5 SRS. But Incinerate's all about like holding it for a long time. You get perks the longer you hold it, and then SRS just expires.
Oh, you don't get more?
No, it doesn't. And I was hoping, and
like at each
in my
stage
opinion,
or something.
it should be that, right? Whether it's every stage or even once you've capped, like every tick, whatever that would be, that's when you get 1 SRS. So it keeps coming out, kind of like how cast while channeling would work, I guess you could say.
Yep.
So SRS doesn't really interest me. Having my minions reserve doesn't really interest me. I know Spirit and Mana are different now, so that's fine. But the skeletons aren't really. The minions that are available don't really interest me. I was really excited for zombies because they don't reserve Spirit. Then I'm like, sweet, now I can reserve an aura. Or I was excited because I discovered Blasphemy in this game doesn't reduce curse efficiency. So I'm like, oh man, I can't wait to reserve a curse and go for Whispers of Doom and get a second curse and all that kind of stuff. Like I'm excited for that kind of stuff. And so zombies, I was so excited for zombies, but they added, and you said they were like this in LA. I don't remember that at all, but zombies have a duration, which makes sense in terms of why they do or don't cost Spirit Reservation. But as just a player that wants persistent minions, I'm like, oh no. Like,
how is it 20 seconds or something?
It is 20 seconds. Yeah. And sure, maybe later on there's going to be ways to, that's not overly actively, maybe some trigger or automatic ways where, yeah, sure, extending duration or just having one automatically raised every 20 seconds based on some sort of energy trigger or something like that. I don't know. Maybe there is.
Do you just not like that you have to cast it or what?
Yeah, that's not why I play minions, so that I have to keep casting stuff, right? And I know that's how PoE 2 is in the moment designed to be, a lot more interactive. But for me, the purpose of zombies is less interaction, not more interaction. So all that to say, and again, not criticisms. Like I said, I think that's actually a good balance. A minion that doesn't reserve Spirit should be temporary, right? Should have a duration. So that makes sense. But it's not in line with what I like. So now I'm kind of at a state where there's actually not any minions that interest me. So speccing out of minions, though it was a frustrating experience at the time because it was just because of a roadblock, I'm not keen to get back into it. So I've been trying other things. So like I said, I started as a sorceress, and that was only with the intention of going with the Chronomancer for that one node where there's just that constant.
Did you go? Have you ascended yet?
No, I got
ascending
to the boss.
Sucks. Just gonna say, I even forgot to say it, but awful.
Yeah,
awful. Sanctum.
I even went on the wiki to see when the third ascendant or when the other ascendancy comes up for trials. Or somebody
posted it because I saw that too.
And the third one unlocks in Act 3. I'm only in Act 2, so I have to do
if you can do
Sanctum if I want to. I actually got to the boss on my first try, which was great.
How much?
I definitely like. I don't do a lot of damage, even
sure,
and I'm trying to use these skill combos, but it's like I'm using Frost Bomb right now.
Yeah.
So there's certain enemies it doesn't really work well with. But I actually got to the boss with like 290 honor left or something.
And then he hits you twice and it's all gone. It's so silly.
Well, and I was doing well, but
nice.
I'm not the hardest hitting
Yeah. It's going to take you a minute.
I'm trying to go in balanced, right? I'm trying to go in with some defense and some offense, and I'm obviously not doing the damage that I should be, but that could just be an early access thing. But it's the worst boss.
I got in there and tickled him, and then I was dead.
Oh, really?
Yeah, there's fire everywhere. There's too many things happening.
Like he does, I get some of the skills, but to have those molten volcano things he has last for minutes,
forever,
not
they're
like 20 seconds. It's only until when he uses a different skill, a specific skill, I forget which one, then it'll get rid of those if it interacts with it. But man, like it was just such for a long fight. It sucks because those volcanoes end up everywhere.
Because you would have gotten to him going like, yes, I actually made it through the stupid sanctum, and now I got this.
I still wasn't expecting to beat him because I was learning the boss. So I was expecting to get hit a lot unexpectedly. Great. That boss, though, on its own, like on its own, boss. Not a sanctum. Yes, great tells, great everything. There's a lot of bosses that I think need a lot of work, and there's a lot of bosses that I think are absolutely amazing. And I love this one, just not for sanctum, especially not for your first level. Like when you're level 20, like you can unlock this at level 20.
I did not unlock mine at 20. Sorry, I didn't actually get my first ascendancy, and so I was like probably 40, and that was going back to an ultimatum where I was over leveled for it.
Right. So yeah, like I went through the boss, I got him down to a quarter life, and I'm like,
dang.
Yeah, but then I ran out of stuff. Like there was nothing in that fight for me to refill flasks and all that kind of thing. So, but it was a frustrating experience because it's just not. I don't see myself having a lot of success in the early 20s against that boss with an honor system.
Mm-hmm.
So either way, but like I'm not the kind of person that likes sanctum, so I'm waiting for the trial master anyway. But I was looking at
it's not always better.
What you need to do to get all 4 ascendancies, and I'm like, oh, all right. I'm just going to start planning my builds around one ascendancy node.
I went around 2 because you can get the second one pretty easy. The second one's pretty easy to get. I saw 3 and 4 and was like, what do we want to do with 2?
That's right. Well, but so that was one thing that was discouraging for me with these ascendancies. And I know like there's 24 other ascendancies. There's going to be a lot that interest me. These current 12 do not interest me very much. I've always been a fan of slow. Temporal chains was always my favorite skill for the longest time. So the Chronomancer interested me because it just has that permanent slow enemies by 20% aura. I love that I can go into the game, click on slow, and right away it gives me the, all right, well, against magic, against rare, and against unique, here's the mitigating factors, or here's the, what's the word I'm looking for? How this mechanic works differently against these rarities. And I love that because now the skills don't have to say that, right? That was a huge problem in the last game, how much text each skill used up because it always had to explain all these nuances, and they still didn't do a great job at explaining the skills. So their really clickable information
now is incredible,
unbelievable, and it's so good. My wife was telling me, she's like, I just love that so far I haven't had to leave the game once for any question. And I mean, what a different experience,
so
right?
Different, yeah,
right. So it's really great. So that's why I'm going. Eventually, I'll be the Chronomancer. I did fail that one attempt at Sanctum. Not sure if I'll try again. Like my build's not meant for it. I don't have a fast
I did Sanctum
build.
twice.
I have a slow build.
And I got to the boss one time and was like, this is not how we're doing it. Let's wait for ultimatum. Then I did ultimatum once and was like, we're going to wait till we're way over leveled. Because they're both, just for me personally, they're 2 of my least favorite things in the game. And it bugs me so much that my ascendancy is gated behind them. Like I did it. I think they've fixed this now, but I was doing an ultimatum and I got killed by an on death effect while I was on the elevator going up. I'd killed all the enemies, go onto the elevator to go up, and all of these orbs fired at me, and you're on a tiny little circle. I couldn't do anything. I just died. I was like, well, that's the end of that run. It was so frustrating.
Yeah, I can imagine. So hopefully the third one's more inclined to just normal gameplay, because I never thought that I would say this. But the original trial that we hated and couldn't wait to get rid of,
I do it in a heartbeat,
was more inclined to the normal ARPG experience. Like you were just fighting mobs. I mean, sure, there was traps, but you were just fighting mobs without weird modifiers or debuffs to your character. Like it was just you and the enemy.
Yeah.
And like that's the most true to an ARPG experience at the heart of things. So hopefully, and they were saying though, and I don't think they were saying that for those that want a more combat experience, the Trial Master, the second version, is going to be the one you're going to choose.
Yep.
And that's them foreshadowing that the third one is not going to be to our liking as well. That's frustrating for me. I never thought that I would want Lab back.
Kudos to them for making us say that, because I never thought we'd say that either.
I never thought.
Well
you
done.
Could be any lower.
Right. You brought us to the point of wanting Azaro back. I do agree with you though. Like, they've put us in a spot where the two ways to ascend are counterintuitive to how you may want to build your build, and I think that that's unfortunate. Sanctum for me does not work at all for a slow attacking character. I can't kill things. I also think they're so cool though. Like, their level designs in there, man, when you flip over like that timer thing, I'm not saying
the hourglass
aspect
was so cool.
Yes, but then it's like, I gotta run in a circle for 60 seconds. That's literally what I did. I just ran in a circle for 60 seconds.
Yep. Dodge roll. Dodge roll.
That wasn't fun at all. But the aspect of going in there and like seeing this, oh dude, that flipping that hourglass, even the crystals was kind of cool. But again, I'm not fighting. I'm just running around clicking a crystal and running to the next one and clicking a crystal and running to the next one and clicking a crystal. That's not fun. And then ultimatum, yes, it's fighting. You got to fight. But you also have these modifiers that can come on there that just are like they will counter your build sometimes. Mm-hmm. Enemies can't be stunned. Cool. That's a good one. I mean, I can pick a different one, but it's like, that's an option. That shouldn't be an option. So it's weird to me to want Azaro back. But I do want that. Like, I like the boss fight side of it. I like that you have to beat this person to ascend. That's cool.
Yeah.
And
traps were stupid, but like, think about Sanctum without honor. It's just you and enemies.
It's fun.
Great.
It's fun.
Like, even kick the thing where you have to click the crystals.
Can screw you. The rooms could screw you, but at least it's still just you fighting with your character, not this random
whole honor
HP
system
bar.
Ruins the ARPG experience, just for me, because like, when you start funneling very important parts of the game through this type of content, no matter what type of theory crafting is available globally, you're saying, no, don't do that. Kind of like how Path of Exile 1 ended up being like, it had to be a damage first game. It had to be a damage first game. Whereas in this game, like, sure, you have all these really cool theory crafting options, but if so much of your content is gated behind something that completely says, no, that archetype does not work with this mechanic, that's a problem, because then it just says, don't bother with this style of theory crafting. Like this, all these archetypes are gone. Now, yes, I'm referencing Sanctum. So maybe those other archetypes could do it all through the Trial Master. Maybe they could do it all through the third one. But one of my favorite maps wasn't really a map in Path of Exile. And that was just going through, what were those, like, the safe houses? I loved it because there was no mods, there was no debuffs, there was no nothing. It was just me and the enemies.
And harder.
And if the enemies were just 10 times harder, fine. Yeah. But it wasn't, my build was fine because it was the way I made it. It wasn't modified by something stupid. I could play my way at my pace with my build the way I designed it. And then there's the enemies. And they'll do what they do. They're trying, like, that's the pure ARPG experience for me. So hopefully number 3, no matter what they've planned, is much more enjoyable. That being said, my character...
There's a cool boss in Ultimatum. You do get to fight a cool boss. And I like the bossing side of things are cool. I just don't like the process of getting there. I like what you said. I want to test my character out as however I built my character, not in you're going to throw these weird modifiers that completely fuck my character over or make me pay attention to something that has nothing to do with how I built my character at all. You didn't put me through a test. I just don't get it. I'm not a huge fan of it. It's interesting,
right? It's not like in the first game, it actually tested your character. Mm-hmm. Like, hey, this is your character. Is your character good enough to do this? Okay, cool. It is. So now let's upgrade your character. Now it's not about your character at all. Hey, play our way, do this little hopscotch or whatever it is that you're going to refer it to. And now you get to upgrade your character. But like, there's no relation to
definitely on Sanctum for sure. Yeah. Ultimatum for me is at least a better option, but it's still not a true test of my. Oh, it's 100%. I was talking about that in Global 2121 yesterday. It's RNG. I'm hoping that I don't get screwed by my next 3 choices. And I mean, thankfully I've ascended 2 times, but I didn't enjoy them. I didn't have fun with them.
It's too bad, sucked. Right?
Yeah.
And you know what you have to do to get your 4th one, right?
What do I have to do to get a 3rd?
I can look it up for you.
No,
can I tell you number 4?
Yeah.
Okay. Are you sure?
Yeah.
Okay, so for people that don't want to know 5 seconds of earmuffs,
would I be able to naturally figure it out? I don't think so.
Yes. But
okay, tell me.
Your 4th ascendancy is beating the Trial Master.
How would I know that though? Playing the game, that would just mean I have to keep going back
in terms of like, I don't know, because I haven't ascended, so I don't know if the game tells you. I saw in one of the patches, I forget if it was a patch or what they're working on, just recently. The game now more clearly states something about ascending.
Sort of. It says on the thing, this will allow you to choose your ascendancy class. But it also says this will allow you to choose your ascendancy class for the one that will get your 2nd one. So I didn't even know, am I actually going to be able to get my 2nd ascension with this one? And then the weird thing is, and this is probably just a bug, which I have not reported to them.
Of course not.
When I finish the trial, so I get my 2nd ascension done, I happen to have some ultimatum, whatever they're called, in my inventory. And when I put the controller over top of them, it does say, this will not allow you to get your ascendancy points. But then when I went back to town, it said this will allow you to pick your ascendancy class. And when I put it into my inventory, all of them said this will allow you to pick your ascendancy class. And I was like, I think you're lying to me, because I already have 2. I don't think you're getting me my 3rd. One's like a level 25 or something. So anyway,
interesting.
I'm curious, did they say the timeline for that 3rd one, like the 3rd way of doing it, or is that like a way later thing? I'm assuming it's a way later thing.
They haven't given a timeline besides the Ziggy Q&A. So just quickly, my goal is to be a chronomancer just for that 20% slow aura presence. I am going to, there's the, I forget which support gem it's called, but for curses, they have some pretty cool curse support gems.
Cool.
One of them is basically what decay used to be. Right. So you curse someone and then they take chaos damage over time. But the unique thing about decay now is, I think it's called decaying touch, is it's chaos damage, but it scales off of your intelligence, 30% of your intelligence every tick.
Cool.
Which is kind of cool. So eventually what I'm hoping to do is so I'm going around curse efficiency, curse AoE duration, and it's all going to plan around the decaying touch, right, for that damage over time. So I'm going to want to stack as much intelligence as possible. And I thought it'd be fun because I haven't gone through and looked at the different mods, but comparing it to Path of Exile 1, it's nice to have like a primary damage mod as a suffix, because suffixes were easy to come by once you had your resistances. Like the suffixes there was some stuff you could do, but for the most part, all the big heavy hitting stuff was all prefixes.
Is there a way with controller to know if it's a prefix or a suffix? Because I haven't been able to figure that out when looking at an item. Because you used to be able to hold down Alt in PC and it would tell you that it's a prefix or a suffix, but I can't figure it out with at least PoE 2. I haven't been able to
PoE 1, yeah, you could. I forget what it is.
If you find it, could you tell me?
Yep, you betcha. So I'm going that route. I'm going with Energy Shield, even though I've always preferred Life in the old game because it only has 1 prefix. I was asking you earlier in the week if life was just flat or if they had life and percentage life.
I've never seen percentage, yeah.
So the reason that I was asking, because I was considering, and I'm still going to go for it, I'm going with Energy Shield, which I know requires 2 prefixes. But I'm still, I'm in the mood to go Energy Shield. So I'm going Energy Shield with Curse, and then hopefully Decaying Touch with stacking Intelligence will be enough damage. But obviously there's a million buttons out there, so I'm going to try and find things that can scale with or protect me in the meantime and add things all together. So hoping for that. Like I have Withering Presence, and it's linked with Clarity, which is really cool that that's a support now. What else do I have? Yeah, there's a couple other things I have that are making it a lot of fun. It's really cool. So I have, unfortunately though, Temporal Chains isn't available yet, But there's a lot of really cool things. Like there's a support gem that increases efficiency of curses, just flat out increases the efficiency, which is great. There's another support gem that's not specific to curses, but it improves the magnitude of slow of the linked skill. So you couple that with curse efficiency and temporal chains, and then the 20% slow from the chronomancer. So I'm excited to go through it, but I am going like it's a slow log for me. And when I die, like in Act 2, I'm going through the grotto, and I'm trying to clear stuff because I'm trying to see where things are and all that kind of thing. And if I die, I'm like, no, it's like the worst thing in the world. But it's not because I died. It's because I don't want to have to go through it again.
Yep.
But maybe I'll get used to that. Like at the same time, like one of the benefits to enemies respawning is I'm still leveling. I'm not at a stage where there's a death penalty yet. And I'm getting more uncut support gems, or like just uncut gems in general.
So many.
So I'm able to try a lot of different things. I'm at a stage where I want to try things. So maybe that would be much more annoying when I'm no longer in the discovery stage of the game. Like I'm really curious what this would be like. Like one thing that I was super excited for Dragon's Dogma 2, right? But one thing, in my opinion, why I absolutely hated that game, despite the fact that I was so excited for it, was because it seemed like they forgot about the process, right? End game and all the different stuff you could do with your characters and items, neat, but the process of getting there was horrendous. And I'm curious what this game and the campaign is going to be like as well, because there's a lot of going back and forth. Okay, go talk to this person, now come to this person, now go to this person, now go to this person. All to I'm curious what that's going to be like the 10th time we go through the campaign.
Well, one thing that is really nice is the way we talked about how with the uncut stuff, it's just overwhelming. The one nice thing though is that, with a bunch of level 14 and 15 uncut gems, I don't have to level up a skill. Like I'm just, it's becoming that, which is really nice. It's amazing, really, for being able to like try things out. I think I hope they make an adjustment to the cost of respeccing, because I would definitely play more with my tree if I wasn't at risk of running out of gold. But I still feel very, very much in that discovery mode of just like, what could I try? How does this work? And I like that. That's so much fun.
Sure. Yeah. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to it. So yeah, right now, but I'm using cold, even though I was talking about curses and chaos. That damage isn't there for me, so I'm doing curses with it. Still has the chaos drip, but I'm doing cold damage to try and supplement it until. Do you get anything else out of Chronomancer
later for further ascensions besides that slow that you want?
Nothing that interests me. But that was the case with almost all of them.
Then.
Because at the beginning I chose this path without knowing the value of any of these other choices. Like recouping life was great, but I wasn't planning on going energy shield then, and so. There's two recoup life nodes that interested me. The time freeze for the Chronomancer interests me, but I just found out yesterday that skills you get via Ascension, so I guess non-support gem skills, right? Skills that you get from whatever, they can't be triggered. You can't allocate them into a meta gem, right? You have to press the button. And so for me, that's like, well, that sucks. Like I'm already planning on using this many skills. Now I'm adding this, and this to it. Like I think in the future, it would be a cool idea for them to be able to, you could trigger or find a way to take those ascendancy skills or weapon skills
and treat them like an actual skill.
Be able to allocate a meta gem to them. So anyway, so it's ended up that I'm only doing this for the slow. There's a couple other ascensions that do interest me, like the Invoker. I can think of 3 out of the 4 that would interest me for this build. But I mean, we still have like a version of Occultist, like Curses. We have all the Templar to show up, all the 3 Druids to show up. Like there's going to be a lot that I'm going to go through, and I'm highly doubt I'll ever be a Chronomancer again. But with that said, I really now all of a sudden want to progress, because nothing else in the Chronomancer interests me at all besides the slow, but I know that slow is always going to eat at me. So probably once the game's fully, quote unquote, fully balanced and officially released, I'll probably have to do another slow build. But for now, this is my chance to do it.
I know it was not in their best interest, but from a selfish reason, I wish that they didn't have endgame. I wish that they had just done a repeat of the acts and you could just keep playing, because I feel like I would be more inclined to try different characters. Because right now I'm kind of like, well, but the Atlas is there. Like, I kind of want to see what the end game looks like. But then in my head too, I'm like, I've barely scratched the surface. Like, I would, even on a warrior side, I'm kind of curious about what I could do with Warbringer. But then you've got all the other classes and all their ascendancies. It would have been kind of cool if you were just kind of like, well, you could repeat the acts and you could farm up a bit, but endgame, we're gonna drop endgame in a month.
Right.
Because
then you'd be used to all the characters you want to play and like to play. I think that would have been a better path as well.
Maybe I should just pretend it doesn't exist, but I can't. It's so hard when there's
of course.
Anyway, maybe I'll do that though. Maybe I should just make some more characters.
Well, you'll catch up to me in no time.
I haven't had many like helpful stuff, like unique wise. I think I've had like 5 uniques drop, and I don't even know if they're good.
Oh, interesting. I haven't had any drop. I've had a rare drop. I've had 1 rare drop.
What do you mean 1 rare?
1 rare item has dropped for me so far.
Yellow?
Yes. But it was a 2-handed maul. I couldn't use it.
Really? Oh, I even since the update, man, I felt maybe I haven't killed much.
I've seen I did have another rare drop, but I think that was a quest reward.
They green, I think. Different color.
Anyway.
You know one thing that they are 100% wrong on? You're going to need a filter. There is no way endgame mapping can survive without filters. Zero chance. It's not as bad as PoE 1, but you're going to need a filter. There's just
one thing they can't do is compare the looting experience to Path of Exile 1. Like, that would be a dangerous thing to do, because Path of Exile because Path of Exile 1 was unacceptable in its loot state. Yeah. And so you just like make it like ignore that game when it comes to comparison. It doesn't exist. Is this what you want the loot experience to be? And right off the bat, I kind of knew that I don't think they're in the right mental state for how loot should be, but that's just because that's my personal preference. But when I have a lesser life flask dropping and I'm nearing the end of Act 1, you know something's wrong with just the aspect of why they have certain loot dropping at certain times. You know it's way too random if there's no rule for them, that not just that the filter hides a lesser life flask.
Just shouldn't
it's
be
that
there.
It's allowed to drop, that it's part of that that's part of that RNG, that it could drop, and that sucks. You just got a bad roll of the dice. Like, it should just
I had a greater available life flask drop in a map.
And you're probably like, that's probably like 7 flasks behind, right?
It's way behind. It's useless.
Right. So, and in the old game, you could even make the argument that they could be valuable for recipes, but still, that's a crappy reason to overload your loot system. And even now, I'm sure that there are some recipes, but none that are similar to, like, with how loot works, like selling, gone. So however the recipe system works, it hasn't been shown to me yet if there is that.
They did keep the flask stash, which is like, I don't know what it's for.
I am curious what that is for, because do charms go in there?
Nope.
Weird. So
charms are awesome, though. I love the charm setup. I really like that. Yep.
Totally.
I do like that.
But if I only have 1 life flask, why would I want a worse if a worse version of the flask dropped, but it had good mods, am I going to use it?
Yeah, no. I can't figure it out either.
And
as soon as I roll a bad one, I just sell it. What am I keeping it for? Or I disenchant it or whatever. I don't understand what I'm keeping it for.
Life and mana flasks shouldn't drop. If you can buy them from the vendor, just remove it from the drop pool completely and just go check the.
I don't actually even know.
Yeah, 100% from the, yeah. Like, they just remove them from the drop pool, and
maybe
then
there's
just,
a future
if you need
plan,
a better
but
one,
it doesn't
make
sense because there's only 2. You can't even change them. They're just like, it's a life and a mana flask. That's what they are. There's nothing else that fits in them. So it's a little funny, but whatever. You know what? We'll see. I heard somebody
early
say.
Access.
I saw a comment that said you can't use early access as an excuse forever. It's like, well, you can actually for like certainly more than a week, but early access is going to be the argument for as long as it's early access. Like, they are constantly changing things are constantly adapting, and they have to figure things out, and that's why we're playing it. At least for us,
it is.
We went into it knowing what we were getting.
Yeah. Loot, as any regular listener knows, has always made me very nervous with GGG because they were so bad at it in the first game. So it was really disheartening with that whole like lesser life flask. Like that's not the only issue that I see. It's just an example of the mentality behind what loot is and should be. So it does make me nervous going forward. I know that they have a very open mind with things, so hopefully there's lots that they can change with it. But the fact that they have 700 items. Are you frozen? I can't tell. Oh, Justin? Hang on a sec. You're on speakerphone. Hang on. Hi there.
Hey, are you still... Did Discord just like...
Discord's down. So still speaking to your mic. I'll turn my volume down on my phone and we'll finish the episode. Because I'm still recording.
I am too. How do we finish this episode now?
Well, just by like, what are you recording on?
Well, you're on speakerphone on my phone right now.
Oh, we'll just like put the phone to your ear then, and then we'll finish off, and then there won't be as much bleed, but we'll finish it up right away.
Okay.
So everybody, just in case, I don't know what Justin's gonna...
off.
All right. So don't know what people are going to hear. Justin, you should keep all that in. So Discord crashed.
Yep.
For I guess everybody, because it happened to Justin and I, and if it happens to Justin and I, it happened to everybody.
Mm-hmm. But thanks a lot, Discord.
Yeah. So anyway, that screwed us up, but we're gonna finish the episode now. We love you. Thanks for listening. Oh, Justin does the exit. Bye.
Let's wrap this up. Episode 271 of Forever Exile. I'm Justin AK Tags,
and I'm Tyler, Wrecker of Days. You're all fantastic.
Patrons will have BK and After Dark, so that's going to be a blast. Everybody else will see you next week in 272. Hopefully you're enjoying early access. If you're looking for more information, you can find down below. We get our website, foreverexiled.com. We have a very fun Discord. You should be in there. Come in and say hello. And other ways to support the podcast, you'll find them down below as well. Peace.
Best ending ever. Keep it all in. Keep it all in.